Hey and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bun Bun, and this is our Sunny Season 1, Episode 8 reaction
Mhm.
and review. Let's go into a big statement, everybody. This episode is magic. This episode is the best episode of Sunny. This is
Yes.
probably one of my 10 favorite episodes of the year so far. I understand it's
Wow.
August, it can change. It can
Wow.
change, but like I adore this episode so much. Its title is Trash or Not Trash, or
That trash bot was so cute.
I love the trash spot. I love the story with Masa. There was just sort of a very folksy appeal to this episode to me. It felt very much like watching a storybook or watching a fable. It had just like this little isolated magical quality to it. And then it had this crazy ending that we're going to try to dissect here.
Listen, these sort of standalone episodes, especially so close to the end of a season, they typically don't hit the way that this one did.
Mhm.
Like it's really hard when you have sort of this big cliffhanger the week before where it's like, oh, Susie's, found Yuki and he's going to have all these answers, and then you have this little bottle episode where it's like, nope, we're going into the past and we're going to be all about this one character. They did this over on Walking Dead where they had this big Glenn cliffhanger, and then
Yeah.
the next episode was we're with Morgan the whole time, which was one of the best episodes of the entire franchise. But because it was backed up
Yeah.
on this big cliffhanger, people were like, oh, I hate this episode, but it was so good. Like if you go back and watch it, it's solid.
Yeah.
And here we are in that type of situation, but they did it much better because this brought us all the way around again to Suzy and what she was trying to figure out from Yuki in the first place.
Yeah, and there are still a lot of questions about Masa, what Masa was doing, where he is, how we're supposed to interpret the ending of this. I mean, we are,
Oh, that ending. I got a huge tinfoil
yeah.
hat theory for you guys.
You need a lot of tinfoil, guys. This is going to be a fun theory discussion.
Yeah.
Before we get into it anymore, though, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We are getting closer to the end of
Mhm.
Sunny, but do not cancel your Apple TV Plus subscription here because Slow Horses is coming up very soon. We are beyond excited.
Yeah, it's a really exciting, fun show. We can't wait to cover that. And also, if you want to continue to help support the channel in
Yeah.
another way, you can join our Patreon for just $5 a month. You can talk to us and get into these polls of what we're going to be covering here at the channel,
Mhm.
exclusive shows we're going to be covering over only on Patreon, and you can have a say in that. And it helps support us to be able to make more videos. So thank you so much to everyone who has.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, let's get into what is happening here because this really was Masa's story
Yeah.
of, him learning that who he thought was his biological father was not, learning that Yuki's actually his biological father. He has all these feelings where he's just like, oh my goodness, like you could have been there for me this whole time and you decided not to be around. And then to learn that his mom is actually the reason Yuki was never around. Like there were so many emotions that were going on for him. And before he even gets to the Yuki of it all and his who he thinks is his biological father has passed away, he has this really rough relationship his whole life
Yeah.
where this father doesn't want anything to do with him. He doesn't know why. He doesn't know what he's done. He's just a little kid collecting bugs. And his dad just doesn't want to hear from him, doesn't want him around. He's on his deathbed and Noriko is still like, no, you're fine, you don't want to go in there. And he's just like, oh my god, like I can't even say goodbye, I can't have any sort of reconciliation. The show is very much about grief and loneliness. The mystery and the robots are all fun or whatever, but that's really what this show is about. Masa goes into this deep isolation and depression for 2.5 years where he doesn't leave his room at all. And he becomes a very different person that doesn't really function. And even when Yuki shows up and is like, hey, listen, like, you can come up to my cabin. I won't bother you. You can be by yourself. And he's back in isolation again. It's still that feeling of the only thing that he feels that he can connect with is this trash bot. It's a robot.
and this brings us right into the title again, which I think is really important for this particular episode. It's not always the case with shows that episode titles are important, but
Mhm.
I think the big question Masa's wrestling with is, am I trash or am I not trash? Like, am I valuable?
Oh.
It's sad, but it's also,
And he values
I know.
sadness. When that trash bot said that, I was like, oh my goodness.
This is why this episode is so incredible, is that it layers on all of these different sort of feelings, because Masa is struggling with this idea of, how do I find value within myself? And he
Mhm.
literally finds value within himself through this robot whose sole purpose is figuring out what's garbage. And they form this really fascinating relationship. I mean, I will say this whole episode reminds me a little bit of the movie Wall-E, and I am a huge Wall-E fan plus defender, one
Yeah,
of the
you
best
are.
Pixar movies out there. But, that was also a little bit about a trash bot. But here, you've got the trash bot and this connection that's building with Masa, where he's never really found anyone he understands. But here is this idea that he can pursue, this idea that he can actually use robots to connect more with humans, and whatever anybody thinks that his actual purpose here is, it's a little bit misguided. And this is another thing I will say about how much I love this episode, is that narration can be very, very controversial in episodes. It can be cheesy. I actually really like the narration here.
Mhm.
I think because we knew directly who Yuki was speaking to throughout the entire process, I thought it added a little bit of context to specific things. And even, I just also like Yuki's voice. Like, I'll just throw that out there. He felt very soothing to me. Like, I would want Yuki to read me a story before I go to sleep.
Yeah, and it was also a bit of Yuki's story as well, of, where he was and why he wasn't there, and him sort of peering through the window and watching his son and getting to make any kind of relationship with him, which was barely anything. Masa's whole relationship was what was with this robot,
Yeah.
which is going to bring us all to putting on so much tinfoil onto our heads, because
All right.
I have like I'm out on tinfoil island here with this theory, but
Okay.
there is some smoke around it. I'm not just pulling this out of thin air, but watching Masa in this episode with this trash bot, where the trash bot's like, you value sadness, and he really realizes that that's true. And he's had years in isolation, and now he's had all this time with just robots.
Mhm.
It made me look at the very ending of this, where we see, Suzy looking at Sunny, and Zen is there, and then Sunny is falling through a pixelated floor, and pieces of brick are turning into pixels and are all kind of falling away.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so is Suzy just a program? She's a program that Masa has created his own wife. He's made his own wife, he's made his own son. We saw how isolated he was and for how many years that was going on. And once he finally left the room, the only thing that he could connect to was a bot. And then he spent all these years also working on bots. Is it that crazy then to think a guy like that has no real social capabilities is then gonna walk up in to meet up with Suzy and start chatting her up and build this very normal, healthy relationship with someone who is very much like him? Like, she's also, kind of moody, isolated, doesn't have any friends. And if you even look at this show, every single person that is in Susie's life is connected to Masa in some kind of way. Even Mixie, who is connected to the Dark Manual, which is connected to Masa. There is nobody that is just Susie's.
Yeah.
So it really feels like, to me, someone who has that type of a personality like Masa was never going to be able to just kind of strike up a conversation, with Suzy and build this relationship and get married and have this sort of nuclear family with their kid. This is someone that he's created. He's created his own wife, he's created his own kid. And it feels like at this point, because Suzy I think isn't real. She's also the dark manual, or has the dark manual in her programming. And that's why he's going to Yuki and being like, you need to protect them. Like this is the thing that matters the most to me. One of the things that really sat there with me thinking this, besides the pixels that were
Mhm.
falling away, was just him saying how valuable he thinks robots are and AI is to actually bringing humanity out of humans, that he values it in that way. And we saw with the trash bot it bring his humanity back. So is it that out of the realm of possibility that he'd be like, okay, I'm going to create myself a wife, I'm going to create myself a kid, and maybe at one point, because she's also hiding this dark manual, because he values sadness, he's had to put her through a program himself to be like, listen, Susie's never going to believe me when I just tell her that she's a program and that I've created her. Because sadness is what he works with, he's putting her through that same sort of feelings and program that he went through of sadness, because he was able to get to the other side of it by going through it. That he's like, okay, Susie needs to go through it too, and she's going to have to deal with the sadness and get through it, because Susie's just me as a female anyways. So let's put her through it so she can get to the other side and realize she's not real, which is where we get to at the end of this episode. And that's sort of the ending explained for me.
Yeah, this is a great
Am I
theory.
crazy? You guys let me know
Okay.
in the comments. 10 out of 10 crazy?
Okay, you're not crazy, because there's a couple of things here to pick up with. You're already cooking this meal. I'm gonna grab a spatula and I'm just gonna toss it a little bit here because I got a couple. Okay, this is an A24 show, and just to speak on this meta for a moment here, as some of you know, A24 is about as weird of a production house as you're going to get.
They did the curse.
Yeah, but the difference between the absolutely awful ending of the curse and what you have actually brought up here is that there's actual evidence that what you are talking about is real within the world of the show. The curse they just didn't know how to end it. And so
No,
they
they
were
did
just
not.
like, okay, let's just do something really weird. But there are signs that this could very well be it. I mean, we've never really heard or seen much of anything when it comes to Susie's family, people
No.
back in America. Like, we haven't seen any of this. Like, the closest thing we've gotten is like that friend D, but that was just like a text. Like, that could
That
be anything.
that could be somebody that Masa's put into the program to
Yeah.
make her feel like she has people around. Like, yeah, she has no family. She has everybody around her is Masa's.
Yeah, and even to the extent where she doesn't know Japanese very well, she's put into the spot where she's been very dependent on him
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, and that sort of codependency is sort of a big fundamental part of the show. I think this is not a crazy theory. I would not be shocked at all
Oh,
if they
thank
go this way.
you.
No,
I don't know.
listen, it's a crazy show. This could very well happen. The other theory that I have right now is just this idea that there's nothing that a lot of Japanese entertainment loves more than symbolism and
Hmm.
doing things to sort of be representative of a larger emotion that they're trying to evoke.
Right.
And I watched this final scene a few times because we saw this big search go on for Zen the moment that they saw the trackers and, oh, there's
Yeah.
this blue tracker. We got to figure out what's going on here. And they find Zen, and then clearly Sunny's got something in her programming that is basically like, if anybody is perceived as a threat to Suzy, I must act. And that's why, Sunny goes at Mixie because they were in the midst of a heated argument.
Right.
And then, here we see Sunny go at Tetsu. And ultimately, the moment that this all happens and Sunny takes Tetsu out, everything is red
Hmm.
for Suzy in this moment. And, red can be representative of a lot of different things. It can be
Hmm.
representative of, panic,
Hmm.
chaos, like all of these just sort of dark and very insidious motifs. And then
It's a passionate color.
it's a very passionate color. And then for whatever reason at this point, Zen is nowhere to be found. I watched this final scene a few times, and I don't
Yeah.
know if did Zen just run off somewhere? Was Zen there? I think Zen was there, but I think what we're
In the
seeing,
program.
perhaps in the
I think he
program.
was in the program.
Yeah, Zen, if your program theory is right, Zen's absolutely in the program. Like, there's no other way you can do that. I think that if this is all just meant to be representative of something, then you have this idea of Sunny just sort of falling away into this like weird pixelated landscape. I think then you're basically just seeing the illusion of what Sunny was meant to be destroyed in Susie's head, where she's sort of realizing, okay, these robots are really, really terrible things, and it doesn't matter if Sunny can protect me or if Sunny was doing this to protect me. I've just watched this robot kill someone. Whatever I thought is just gone. It's all my coding metaphorically here has just been reduced to ash. And then on top of all of that, because she knows that Masa is Sunny's creator,
Mhm.
I think she's also in that moment thinking, okay, what does this mean with Masa? That Masa is capable of all of this. So I can see this being representative of just this radical transformation in Susie's head of, okay, everything I thought I knew is gone and I'm just left with despair. But yeah, I'm alive and I'm glad to be alive, but this is what it cost for that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, if this is sort of like a dream or she's having some sort of mental health break or something like that, I
Yeah.
mean, that makes the most sense of what's going on. I know that this is an A24 show and they like to go kind of like wild, so we can
Yeah.
have fun with those types of theories, but this makes the most sense. However, the zen of it all is really what is throwing me. If Zen was actually ever there,
Mhm.
how and why would he just disappear? Even if you had Susie having sort of this, red filter go over, she's in this shock, she can't believe that Sunny just killed somebody and all of that. She's got her son standing right in front of her. Why would Zen run away
Yeah.
or disappear? Wouldn't be in her arms. She wouldn't have jumped over to protect him because this robot just killed somebody. Like, it's very weird to me that the son just disappeared.
Yeah, I've had a really hard time wrapping my head around that because, like, regardless of your explanation as to what's going on here, you would think that Zen would be front of mind for Susie no matter what. I mean, I guess the good news is we don't see Zen going into this pixelated world. So if Zen was actually there, that means Zen, fingers crossed, is alive and okay, and nothing bad is going on.
I just wonder if Susie, if she's a program and Zen is a program, if they are inside Sunny and that Sunny is what is protecting them. And that's why Sunny was given to Yuki and that this whole thing is, Yuki's in the program talking to Susie
I think there
to bring the robot.
I think this is just a really interesting end to this episode because all of it kind of goes into this huge question, and I'm having a really hard time with this. How do you start episode 9 after something like this?
It was all a
If because it's like if
dream.
they do that, like even if this whole theory of this all being representative is right or whatever, it's gonna be kind of lame if you just start this episode and it's like, okay, what we just saw and all of that doesn't matter. Like if this is just symbolism, you're gonna have to bring the symbolism forward and find a way to continue to echo that throughout the next episode. Otherwise, this is just gonna feel like a stunt. Or if your theory about this being this massive program or simulation or whatever we want to call it, like if that is true, where do you pick up from here? Like, is Susie realizing it now?
I just think that if they were going to spend this much time on Masa, who is dead, but I don't
Yeah,
think any of us think he's dead, but if we're going to spend this much time with him to learn about his isolation, how long it went on from that he has no real relationship with his mom, that he didn't have any relationship with who he thought was his dad. He
yeah,
didn't really have that much of a relationship with Yuki either. The only real relationship he had was with this robot where all he did was try to grow it to grow himself because he thinks robots will help develop humanity and make people better people and have better relationships. Then like, what was the purpose of us learning all of that if Susie's not a program
it's
or she's not a robot?
yeah, it's difficult because I think the show is clearly trying to show that okay, this is why Masa became the person that he is, and he felt a certain, I guess, sanctity to what he was doing in his job to the extent that he wasn't able to tell Suzy about it. And so is that because he was trying to hide that she was a program? Is it because he
Yeah.
just didn't want anybody to know like the true nature of his connection to his work?
That's the thing. I mean, if he's hiding what he does for a living, like, why would he be hiding that from Susie unless she's part of it and she doesn't know it? Because she might have had questions, or she might have been able to start to pick up on things if she knew what he actually did. Because if this is what he does,
Yeah.
he's a robot guy. He's making these robots to make people's lives better, to bring out humanity in people, to do good things with them. Why are you hiding that? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, like he's clearly, I mean, aware of a certain level of danger that can come from it, but at the same time, there's so much good that can come from it as well. Like he has so much that he can be proud about. But I think this is the inherent beauty of this episode is that even if we did not have this absolutely bonkers off the wall ending that has led to us having, really tinfoil box level of tinfoil hat theories, like
I
I
bought out the
yeah,
store.
the store is in shambles at this point. Like, even if we didn't have any of that, like, just this stuff with Masa alone was just so, I think, magical and so innovative, the way that that connection was built. And I think a lot of it, honestly, to me, just comes off in this. I think a lot of us have these moments where we're a little bit misanthropic, where we just kind of don't connect with other humans that well. I've certainly have felt like that often and felt like that
Mhm.
sense of isolation. And I think Masa became such a real, relatable character through a lot of this and how he was trying to determine which parts of his past were trash, which parts of his past were not trash, what he wanted to hold on to, the relationships he wanted to hold on to. This is just an episode I could go back and rewatch many times, and I think I would still discover these little things that are just so well written and well executed.
Hearing you talk about this episode
Mhm.
and how much you love it and that it's in your top 10, I
Yes.
mean, it's starting to convince me.
Welcome.
No,
No,
it was such a good episode. It really was. This show, I've been pretty honest this season
yeah.
about my sort of like ups and downs with this show. Like,
Hmm.
it started out really strong. They've had a couple episodes where I'm just like, they're not bad, but they're not anything. And then you give us an episode like this where I'm just like, there's so much meat on this bone. They're telling us so much in, such a short period of time. I mean, this episode's only like 36
I
minutes or
know.
whatever, and they really packed in this emotional story of just a guy and his robot.
Tell your friends, people. This is just one of those episodes where you watch it and be like, why are there not more people watching this show? And I know
Nobody's watching the show.
I know, and we've had this refrain in other videos, but it just this really cements it to me. It's not Sunny's not a perfect show. Like we've made that very clear. It's had some problems, but this is its full potential. I hope it continues this trajectory for the rest of the season. I
Yeah.
mean, we'll see, but for now, hit that subscribe button so you do not miss that. Also, of course, Slow Horses coming to Apple TV Plus.
Mhm.
We are very excited.
Mhm.
If you want to support us more, join our Patreon for $5 a month. You can help decide what other shows we are going to cover.
Mhm.
Thank you to our patrons for your support. We'll see you here next time.